What's going on, my friends? It's been a while. Long time no see. Had to uh, had to take care of course, several cases during the normal live showtime, and plus just getting ready for the new year, right? So thank you so much for your patience. I hope the mic is working. Some reason I always have trouble in the beginning. Okay, looks like it's working. Well, drop any comments if you have any questions. Of course, we're happy to see if we can point you in the right direction as always. And you might have seen a new thing that we're featuring typically every Saturday, and it's like usually like the top five news bits related to U.S. immigration, and hopefully, but it's a really supposed to be short version, and then we'll go in more detailed throughout for the following week with more information about each couple of the news bits. If you and by the way, friends, if you're new to our channel, we do have free 15 minutes that will you can unlock access the free 15 minutes, and but you do have to wait for the secret code that we usually provide towards the end of the episode with the secret code, so you can share that with our cares team. And usually, what happens is that when you call in, or at the number above right here, or down in the description, you go to our website and answer a couple questions. So share your question there, and then we can help you and guide you. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are situations where we do have to share bad news that you might not be eligible for something, and you do just have to wait. Unfortunately, for reform, which last year was all about talking about reform, and I know you're probably tired of hearing the nonsense of or lack of news for that matter. And but of course, if there's some kind of information going on about Congress, then we'll let you know. Um, the other thing here is, we wanted to share some information about kind of basically know your rights. That's really about our show here, and the things about some concerns that even my team has asked me to share with you because we get a lot of calls about this. Okay, for one, I like to share that, and of course, interrupt me at any time. But one of the items to share with you, for example, is we just had a consultation yesterday that the person the immigrant applicant just received a denial letter. Okay. And that was based on a 485 case. And they had already filed the appeal. So we actually received a lot of these similar questions. I think it was at least two or three yesterday of similar facts. They had if the 485 adjustment status application was denied, and then uh, people always wonder, well, should I file a 290B to appeal it, or a motion to reconsider? And it really depends. Number one thing that we look at is whether the denial letter mentioned anything about marriage fraud. Typically, our stance is that if the denial letter did not mention anything about marriage fraud, but maybe there was inconsistencies in the statements or answers we provided at the interview, we can address that. Okay, but we normally don't file appeal in that kind of situation. We usually only file appeal if there is marriage fraud finding or any other inadmissibility situation. Okay, and then and it may require filing a waiver application, but we would address that to see if you're eligible for it. And the reason being that we would recommend refiling the case in general is because even though it takes at least 12 months to process your 485 application, I know it takes a long time, but that's typically faster than filing appeal, because appeal actually, I'm sure you know about the processing time schedules, timetables, which is all estimated. Okay. But if you look online at the uscs.gov website, it does not have any timetable for appeals for 290B form, but they do for the other forms. Okay. So people ask, like, well, John, how long would it take for an appeal? It varies. And it's not whether your case is better than other people, or if you mailed it in faster, FedEx, UPS, or USPS. Which, by the way, friends, if you do file your own case, please use, I recommend UPS or FedEx because they tend to be more guaranteed. That's for sure. Unfortunately, I've heard even horror stories with other attorneys that, they did what we normally do is we file with U.S. Post Office, but this past year or two, they've been having some trouble. So we definitely don't want you to lose. We don't want the carrier to lose your package. Let's get it to USCIS. So, anyways, there's so much I can share, of course. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, just drop it in the comment section. We're happy to point you in the right direction. And friends, if you're new to our channel, please click subscribe down below if you enjoy our content the way we present it. But here's another situation that we're kind of actually to follow up with that scenario about the marriage situation. And that is, one person asked should they refile the case? Well, I said, well, how are things going with your marriage? Because it kind of sounded like this person was not having a good marriage relationship. It was legit. It sounded like legit, bona fide marriage, but things have started to turn for the worst, in terms of relationship, unfortunately. And that's something to consider, especially during a pandemic. I know we're all of us are spending more time with each other. We try our best. And of course, when you maybe in any relationship, whether it's like at your workplace or at home, you probably didn't expect to spend 24/7 with that person or group of people. So, with that being said, if relations are strained and you don't think your marriage will last another 12, 15 months, then you might want to reconsider, okay? Because it does cost at least $1,760 with USCIS. And plus, of course, attorney's fees if you want to hire a lawyer, but that's obviously not required. Uh, but yeah, we like to think holistically, okay, comprehensive in that sense. Most law firms will just say, "Sure, we'll help you." Well, obviously, but what's the best advice, And so we get that sense from people when we have the consultation, especially if you're on video. It's easier for us to tell, but we would hate for USCIS to provide a similar answer or decision and say denied, and answers are inconsistent. Because look at this, friends. Like, look, even if your spouse goes to the interview, but one of the red flags that we'll mention in a episode, maybe hopefully next week, is that one of the red flags is body language. Okay, if both of you are in the interview room and you're each of you are not really, there's no loving vibe there, it's pretty obvious to an officer. It doesn't really take a genius. So, and even if you had all the proper documentation that you believe was sufficient, which, by the way, friends, marriage certificate is not enough. Just thought I'd put that out there. Also, photos are not enough. But we'll go in more detail next week about the top red flags that we see. Okay, in officer perspective. Okay, so show me some love on Instagram and YouTube. Give me some hearts. Hit the like button. Appreciate it. Let us know where you're watching from. I always think that's interesting. Let's see. Okay, so another scenario. Pretty much my know your rights here is more warnings, okay? Because we really, and save you money, because I would not want anyone to have to pay, especially the government fees, and then come to find out you are not eligible to file the application. They can certainly accept the application, but accepting the application is not the same as approved. Okay, so if you receive the receipt notice, that does not mean approved. It just literally only means that they received it. Okay, so that's why it's always better to at least consult with an experienced immigration lawyer. Okay, so if you talk to lawyers and they don't They just kind of puff. It seems like they're puffing, but they don't really tell you how you're eligible. Ask questions, okay? All right. I know there's information online, but you really, if you have a consultation with a lawyer, you really have to ask those questions. Okay. All right. So here's the second scenario, friends. Okay. My team asked me to share this with you. And okay, how we get, because we get a lot of calls about this, that many of you have not maintained your legal status. And so to, um, if you're looking to get a work visa, you really need to consider, because we have some calls later today as well who are still on visitor visa or F1 visa, and that's great. Don't wait till the last second. Now with YouTube and of course other immigration lawyers on the tube, please take care. Please use this information to request a consultation for further information if you're eligible. Okay, please don't accept the information here as advice because everyone's situation is different. But here's the thing: people call us and their visa is about to expire, and some people are able to call us in advance and say, "John, what can we do?" Okay, Ting Law Group, what can we do? And we ask you, okay, well, is your country of nationality from a country that's on an E visa? Okay, the treaty country list, treaty traders list, that's created by the Department of State. Okay, that's number one. Because, honestly, everyone already knows if you're married to a US citizen, that's the quote unquote fastest way. So we typically don't even ask that because we don't want anyone to feel pressure to get married to anyone. So, and also it has to be legitimate. So, anyways, but what we like to share is situations that most people don't know about. And that is, for example, the e visa. That's typically if you have a business or want to create a business, or doesn't have to be your own per se from scratch. It can be a franchise company that already exists, like let's say Chick-fil-A or McDonald's. I know McDonald's is very expensive. I know Chick-fil-A is not less expensive, but they're having very um, rigorous process that takes a long time. Apparently, I think a year or more. But yeah, there's other companies that you can franchise with, and it does not have to be a restaurant, of course. So that's usually one of our first questions. And then the timing. Okay. Can you get the funds ready for something like that? Uh, it's not for the everyday, it's not for everyone. So for example, and also if you're a student on F1 visa, try your best to not lose status. Okay. Some people, because they don't return to school, they don't pay tuition. Those are very easy ways to lose your F1 status. And if you lose the F1 status, it should be obvious, but I just gotta put it out there. You're not gonna have the ability to exercise the OBT or CPT, and especially of the STEM, you have more time with the OPT, and that gives you time to build trust with your employer, okay, related to your degree. So those are just some examples there, because we do get many calls where people say, "Look, John, I'm working, I'm paying my taxes, but I overstayed." I say, "Look, you could still get sponsored, but at some point you need to apply for a waiver, and not everyone qualifies for a waiver." Okay, so we can talk about that more. We'll share more details about that next week. Okay, but it is possible. It is just a long process, and a lot of things could go wrong, and not necessarily because of your personal application, but on the employment-based perm, it's a long process. It takes at least a year and a half to 2 years, and so if y'all need to know this, because there's a recruitment process. The employer probably wants us. They offer to sponsor you, let's say, but they start the process, and let's say 5 months down the line, well, they need to start their recruitment process, and there's another applicant that's qualified. They could just hire that person who has status already, resident or U.S. citizen. So at any point in the process, it could be derailed. But at the end of the day, if you have an employer that's willing to sponsor you, you want to take advantage of that. But again, if you are here without status, with overstay, or we call it EWI, entry without inspection, without a visa, there are definitely more complications, of course. So we can talk about that. Give us a call up here, find a number up here, or fill out the intake form. Just answer a couple questions down below, and our cares team will call you within 24 hours of it during the week. Again, we're here to solve your immigration problem and make sure you're eligible. Okay. We wouldn't want to start a process and then come to find out you're not even eligible to begin with. Okay. So, the third main scenario I want to share with you, okay, that you want to know is that my team asked me to share with you, actually, which is very nice of them. By the way, friends, again, if you're just joining us and you have any questions, this is meant to be a live show to answer any questions. So if you welcome to drop it in the comments, and we'll see what we can do. Let's see here. So spouses, okay. People call us and they say they want to get sponsored, right? And it's a family base, it's their spouse, but the spouse is only a legal permanent resident. Even though the permanent resident sponsor can file a petition, there can be complications. It's a bit more complex. And the reason is that's considered a family preference category. I'm pretty sure I covered this in a prior video, maybe a couple months ago, that said something like in the thumbnail said like failed to maintain status. Check that out. But I want to share again today, and that is because we receive many calls about this too. And some people think that they have to file a waiver. The person, for example, the immigrant applicant, spouse, enter with a visa, and yes, you do have to file a waiver if you want to continue through the sponsorship of your spouse who's a resident. But to avoid that, because that's more time, that's more money, to avoid having to show you maintain status, that is ask your spouse who's a resident to apply for naturalization, become a U.S. citizen. That can significantly save you a lot of money and time because just a waiver alone, at least before the pandemic, 8 months, okay? And then just marriage case in general takes at least 12 months. So that's almost 2 years. And then now with the waiting for the visa interview is completely unpredictable. Okay. I mean, we do check the visa statistics every month to see the trend for each concept that people ask about. And you can get an idea, but that still doesn't tell us, okay, you've been waiting 6 months. All right. So if you can avoid having to go back to your country of nationality, you want to take advantage of that. So recommend to your spouse to become a U.S. citizen if they're a resident and they're filing for you. Okay. And here's the reason why. Legally, it waives any unlawful presence. Okay. You still have to have entered America with a visa. Okay. Or possibly TPS, depending on which part of the country you're located, which is strange, right? Because immigration is federal law, should be applied uniformly across the country, but it's not. So that's why it's important to consult an immigration lawyer to verify for you. But anyways, so step number one in this situation, your spouse needs to become a U.S. citizen, and even then, that application process takes at least average 12 months. In some cities, it could be slightly less time, and in other cities, urban cities, can take much longer. Okay, and then after that, you know, then you can apply. That person, your spouse, can sponsor you to become a resident. Okay, and then you don't have to leave America as long as you stayed, entered with a visa, and you did not leave. Okay, if you left the United States, that's for a different conversation. Okay, that's for a different episode that we'll cover. Uh, but yeah, one of the hurdles that people have about becoming a citizen, I believe, because in China, for example, it's difficult to transfer assets. Even in other countries, it's difficult to do that. And then the other thing is maybe language barrier. Okay, but you have time. It behooves you to take the test. Okay, don't be afraid. There's so many churches There's that offer free English classes. We provide resources that's actually produced by the government, the USAS, to learn. Okay, at least for the test. But for English class, there's a lot of churches. We can easily internet search it for you. But obviously, this current episode's in English. So anyways, but if you know someone who's wants to become a U.S. citizen, but they're concerned about the test because of language barrier, let us know. Happy to point you in the right direction. Some people think like, oh, I need to pay money to speak with a lawyer. Friends, that's why we're here. We offer free 15 minutes. Okay, so here we are. We're gonna go ahead and conclude the show today. So we're gonna go ahead and show you the secret code. And here it is, my friends. Okay, it's on the bottom left of your screen. Green card guys, you could have guessed it, but share that with our cares team, and they'll get you taken care of, get you scheduled, and see if we can help you and point you in the right direction. Thank you so much, and have a great day.